Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. A lot of you guys were asking me to do a video about the new Iron Man armor, so here we go. What I'll do is I'll talk about the new Ultimate Iron Man Spider-Man armor, and then I'll talk about the evolution of all of his suits from the first Iron Man film. There are now 46, 47 if you include this new version of the armor, but we don't know the actual designation yet. So there's a new round of the Spider-Man giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. It's for one of the new Hasbro figures, which is what this is actually based on. This reminds me of that scene in Civil War where Spider-Man walks into his apartment talking to Aunt May, not realizing that Tony Stark is sitting there just talking about his day, saying, "There's this sick car parked outside. What the hell's going on?" And then he sees Tony Stark. Oh my god, there's a sick new Iron Man car in Spider-Man Homecoming. So who knows when they're going to reveal it, but it actually looks a little bit like the Ultimate Spider-Man armor mixed with the MCU Iron Man armor designs. And the thing about the Ultimate Iron Man color scheme is that the movie itself is borrowing a lot from the Ultimates universe, the Ultimate Spider-Man title, with the character like Genki, who's actually Ned Leeds in this movie. So they're just borrowing a lot of story, character elements from the Ultimates universe. It would make sense that they would borrow a couple visual things too. So the Iron Man armors themselves have changed a little bit with each movie. You know, within the Iron Man franchise itself, they change a lot, but just within the Avengers movies, they get tweaked just a little bit. Every new movie, even with Civil War, he gets a new version of the armor. It's just that there was so much stuff going on in Civil War that not as much attention was paid to the new Iron Man armor as you would normally see, and he wasn't even in the armor that much. Robert Downey Jr. walking around on set's pretty cool too. When you watch him in the behind the scenes, you see that he's one of the few people that does not walk around in full costume. Now they've got it down to a science, so if you watch the old Iron Man films and you look at the old versions of the armor, it looks very different because it's practical. Like it's actually him standing inside physical armor filming scenes. Nowadays, they have it down to the point where Robert Downey Jr. can just walk around on set super comfortable, even if it's super hot in the Atlanta sun, and just film his scenes, and they'll add the armor in post-production. There are a number of reasons why Tony Stark would give himself a new suit of armor in this new movie. The whole thing in Iron Man 3 was that he was moving past that, but then they explained when they got to Civil War that he just couldn't leave it behind, like he just couldn't stop being Tony Stark. So for everyone who was bummed out at the end of that movie when he threw the arc reactor into the bay, that was just meant to be a bookend for Iron Man if Robert Downey Jr. didn't renew his contract. There's actually a funny story about that I'll tell at the end, him renewing his contract for these new Avengers films. But the way they color it in this, the red and yellow accents on a gray base, is just meant to accentuate the red for Spider-Man. So the color scheme's very appropriate to the movie, and whatever functions he's added to it probably have something to do with fighting the Spider-Man villains, animal-themed villains, even though it all flows from technology. We talked a lot about how Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., the Iron Man movies, are so influential in the way that they built the MCU. You have mutants over at Fox with the X-Men universe, very organic base. You have the older Spider-Man films at Sony, very organic animal-themed villains. You have the DC abilities, people like Superman having abilities that flow from their biology. Then you have the MCU with a lot of aesthetics, a lot of powers flowing from technology base. So now because Marvel is producing Spider-Man, his rogues gallery flows from that too. So you have your technology-based Vulture that looks very Tony Stark, Chitauri inspired from the Avengers films. So the whole idea here is that this is a continuation of the Spider-Man Iron Man story from Civil War. Tony Stark is super bummed out, so this is an important arc for his character in this film too, as well as Spider-Man. It's really Spider-Man's movie. Iron Man is just a guest. But you have to imagine that Iron Man is getting his own movie broken up into a bunch of different movies the way the Hulk is. Like everybody's heard the story about how Disney doesn't have the rights to distribute a Hulk film, so they don't want to make it if they don't have all the rights. So they're giving Hulk his own movie just broken up into a bunch of different pieces between Thor Ragnarok in Avengers Infinity War. So because they have so many other characters to introduce, and Robert Downey Jr. is such an expensive actor, they just amortize the cost of hiring him over the course of a couple movies, and I totally love it. There's been so much Tony Stark, now it's time to focus on new characters like Spider-Man, but now they can roll him out with cool new shiny armor the way you normally would without having him completely take over the entire movie. I'm guessing that there's probably less than 20-25 minutes of Iron Man in this movie. And yes, he will probably steal every scene that he is in. And just based on the trailers, it seems like whatever this new armor is going to be, it's not going to debut till later in the film. Because in the trailer, one, they have that opening clip with him from Civil War. Like they literally just copy and pasted some of Civil War just to tell you where things pick up in the film. And then later when he's swinging through the streets, he's actually wearing the old version of the armor too. So it sounds like that moment with them swinging around is from earlier in the film, because usually they save big cool reveals for later in the film. Like after he comes to this Avengers base, or maybe after Iron Man decides he's finally going to get up off his ass and help Peter. He keeps telling Peter throughout the film to just chill out, don't worry about being an Avenger. Peter won't shut up about it. I want to prove myself. He keeps treating me like a kid. So there's got to be some big third act reveal where Iron Man comes in, helps him out, and then Spider-Man lands the big win. But let's do a rundown of all the different versions of the Iron Man armor. They don't officially have a designation for this new armor yet, but starting with Mark 1 in the first Iron Man film, you have Mark 1, Mark 2, and then Mark 3. Then in Iron Man 2, you have the Mark 4, the Mark 5, the briefcase armor. The Mark 6 was the one that he used when he fixed the arc reactor with the new power source. Then in Avengers, it was the modular armor that would attach mid-flight using the nanoprobes. Then in Iron Man 3, that was where it really got crazy. You remember that like it went way overboard, and obviously was the hat tip to him destroying all of them at the end of the film. Like, I don't need all this crap. So it was Mark 8 all the way up to Mark 42. The Mark 42 was the armor that he wore for most of that film. The Age of Ultron armor was 43. The 44 was the Hulkbuster. That was one of the best reveals from that movie. Veronica. Why did Joss Whedon name it Veronica? This is so great, because once upon a time, Bruce loved a girl named Betty, and Veronica is the opposite of Betty.
All right, everybody, stand down.
Veronica, give me a hand.
By the end of that movie, there was a really subtle change to the shinier version of the armor. It was the Mark 45, it was more powerful, but that was kind of lost because there was so much stuff happening on screen. Then when we get to Civil War, it's the Mark 46. So even though his Civil War armor is obviously very cool, it's always cool to see a new version of the suit. I didn't like the way they colored that film so much. They dulled the red just a little bit, and unless you're watching the movie on like a really good calibrated TV, the color looks a little off. So it almost looks like this red version of the toy armor is just returning it to a deeper shade of red, which I totally love. So let me know in the comments, what is your favorite version of the Iron Man armor? It could be from the movies, from the comics, from anywhere. I feel like Hulkbuster and the Extremis armor are still the two coolest armors, but he's not going back to Extremis anytime soon, and because Hulk is fighting Thor, obviously we're not going to see the Hulkbuster for a while either, but because Spider-Man is visiting Iron Man at the Avengers facility, we might get a version of this scene here where he takes him through the new armory at this Avengers base. Now in the comics, he does have a mobile version of the armory. Iron Man doesn't walk around with his suit on all the time, but like we saw in Civil War, like he has the watch that turns into the gauntlet, so he does have stripped down versions of the armor for whatever he needs to do. But that funny story about Robert Downey Jr. renewing his contract with Marvel, so he re-upped for a slightly different deal. He re-upped through both of the Avengers films, which included his time in Spider-Man Homecoming, the Civil War stuff, but he hadn't done that before Comic-Con a couple years ago, so they wanted to make this big announcement. So if you remember the big special panel that Marvel did where they announced Black Panther, they announced Captain America Civil War, all these big movies, they announced Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. The reason they did that, we found out now, is because they couldn't do it at Comic-Con the year before that, which I think is funny. Marvel is big enough, they have enough goodwill in the fandom that they don't need to go to Comic-Con, but they do anyway, which I think is really cool. But in related Spider-Man Marvel news, a lot of you have been asking me about the story of Sony selling the rights to their film business and Disney maybe buying that so that they can get Spider-Man back. Marvel doesn't earn money on the Sony movies. They earn money on the merchandising. So when Spider-Man Homecoming comes out, whatever amount of money that it makes, Marvel will not see a dime from that. They'll just get all the money from this merchandising here. So you can see how they're really excited to give Tony Stark all these new toys during the movie so that they can sell them in real life. There's a whole bunch of Marvel Comics news about how they're returning all the characters to status quo. Maybe I'll do a video about that this weekend. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So what's going to happen later tonight is, because it's Star Wars Friday, I'll do my new Star Wars Last Jedi video. That'll post in a couple hours. There's a Lego Batman Easter egg video that I want to post. That'll probably be Saturday morning. There's a billion Easter eggs in that movie. It was crazy. So congratulations to Ryan Barry. You win one of the Spider-Man Hasbro figures. It's for a pre-order. Hasbro hasn't started selling them yet. So please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. There was a new round that started in this video. If it doesn't get too crazy, I'll post that new Marvel video this weekend. I'll announce a new winner. While you wait for that, you can click here for new Iron Fist footage, and you can click here for new Guardians of the Galaxy too. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you in the next video.